Thanks, guys. That gives me just a wonderful insight to what you are hoping for this afternoon. What we're going to do is I'm going to warble on, check in with you, and we'll be going for about 45 minutes, and then there'll be lots of time, hopefully, for some great questions. If you want to add questions, you're very welcome to put that in the chat. Margriet will be keeping a watchful eye in that space. You can raise your hand, or you can just simply shout out. We're all happy with that. So as Shivra says, we don't need to be too formal. Let's wind and rewind and do some learning this afternoon. So just a bit about us. If you're new to these Strength Masterclass sessions, the Being Human group, the BHG is who we are. Our name will tell you about what we're passionate on, and that's the development of human beings. So everybody that is a human is in our network and our aspiration to reach out to and impact positively. If you're not a human, well, you're also still very welcome to this session. We'll see what we can do. We're an award-winning Gallup strategic licensee. Our role really is to empower people. In other words, to work with great folk like yourself who have these questions and really to give you the capacity, the thoughts, the frameworks, the tools, the approaches to start to make a meaningful impact, not only in your own development, but for those around you. So whether you have an aspiration of more clients, better team, relationships, better home relationships, or actually just, as a leader, you want to stop feeling that life is about pushing a rock up a hill, then this is the place we like you to be. In terms of psychological safety, guys, you're in a safe space to express and really to share in, lean in to these sessions, and your questions are very welcome. So we empower people, positively disrupt workplaces, because we don't believe the traditional workplace is a place that really empowers and enables people. And we want to change the way people lead by using the science of strengths. So the assumption that we are basing a lot of this trust work on is this idea that what you bring to the table, your inherent talents, who you are, your strengths, is probably the best way or the easiest way to be the best version of yourself and the best way to impact others around you. So whether you are thinking about how do I execute, how do I build great relationships with other people, how do I influence them, which is a bit of where the trust sits, or how I think through options and deal with data and information, who you are and what you bring to the table is an important consideration. So we'll be sharing a little bit of thoughts around trust, but in the context of what you as an individual brings to the table, your talents and strengths. Just loved this quote from Warren Buffett, who is everybody's favorite guru in investment. And he said, "Trust is like the air we breathe. When it's present, nobody really notices." And isn't that true? But when it's absent, everybody notices, and it seems to suck the energy and the life out of a team, a group, or a system. Yeah. When it's there, it's like air. We take it for granted. But when it's not, everybody notices. So what is this trust? It's all very well us saying, well, hold on, it's intangible. We know when it's not there, but when it's there, what is it? Well, trust, if you look at the research, is central to all human relationships. And you can really get, intuitively, I think everybody knows that. I mean, think about your friends and family you start with. You have a relationship with them because you have a deep connection with them. But fundamentally, you feel perhaps safe with them, you feel that there is an ability or a two-way commitment. And so trust is central to all human relationships. It's the expectation, right? Not one that you have to put in a legal document. It is the expectation that commitments made by another person will be fulfilled. So think a little bit about this. What is a commitment? A commitment could be an emotional one, where we're committed to our friends and our family. It could be a business one, where we're committed to helping our team and our team leaders succeed. It could be to a customer. It's the idea that if you commit to something, you will fulfill that. So that's really the key lens that we want to have a look at, is the expectation. The other person just knows that if you say it or you commit to it, nothing more needs to be done, but you will fulfill that promise. And so you can start to think in an organizational customer where we may not know people as well as our family, we're going to have to really build how we put this commitment story into place. We can't just accept it's going to be there. Some people are naturally good at it, and we can envy them. The rest of us, have to work a little bit harder to put those types of pieces of the puzzle in place. And today we're really going to share a little bit about how you can go about doing that. And we use this word often, intentionally. In other words, you don't just show up and you go, hey, I'm going to trust you, because A, that's a bit naive, and B, you may lose your wallet. But it's about really sort of thinking a little bit about, right, so how can I be intentional and put those building blocks of trust in place as a team lead or an advisor or a customer-oriented person? So what we're going to do today is we're going to really sort of talk about the call to action. What is it about trust that's so problematic? We're going to talk a bit about what a culture of trust means. And then I'm going to give you a really great framework. It's called the trust equation. And what's really cool about the trust equation, it contains this number of ways of thinking and almost steps too, that if you do these types of things in a way that's authentic, you are going to build a relationship where commitment between two parties, a part of that human relationship around trust, will be built over time. We're going to talk a little bit about how strengths and trust can work together. And, what you bring to the table is going to be as important as what somebody else brings to the table, but you can be intentional about building trust as a goal. And then, of course, we're going to talk a little bit about, right, so if we're building trust, how to support that in terms of a process or an approach. So you're going to get a framework today. You're going to get some concepts, and at the end, you're going to get an approach to how you can start to think and build trust. But here's a couple of power questions first before we really want to start thinking about a call to action. And here are some things just as a litmus test, some questions about trust. When you feel most trusted, what is happening to make you feel that way? So when do you feel safe? What's happening around you? What do I currently do as a leader or an advisor or a team member that I should have you take more responsibility for or completely own? So this is something a little bit about, well, we're in partnership or in relationship with somebody else. You can't do all the heavy lifting. So what must the other person bring to the party? When you feel a lack of trust, what do you feel is actually missing? Can you put your finger on it? How often should we meet to have conversations about what you're working on and how I can support you? Notice the orientation in this question is we are going to talk to each other. I had a great experience yesterday. I was facilitating a team workshop. It was about strengths and it was about team cohesion, and somebody with analytical, this capacity to deeply look at the data and to analyze everything to death. I asked them to start to think a little bit about who they would naturally partner with. And he didn't move. So I was like, but, I said to him, well, what's happening? He says, oh, I didn't realize that you wanted me to talk to somebody else. And so this notion of talking, is a trigger point, but also it gives you a bit of a sense that we sometimes don't have proper conversations, this two-way sort of dialogue that's so necessary for understanding. And, what are you working on in organizations, or if you're customer facing, what is your customer's pressing need? And notice whether you're a team lead or the CEO, the power of question here is authentically, how can I support you? That's the shift. And then when faced with a complex problem, what is the best way for me to offer support that helps us build trust with one another? And I think so often team leads tell people what they think they want to hear, but they don't follow up on that commitment. And that actually does worse damage than not committing or promising at all. So you have, depending on where your state is and where you are, these could be some questions that could help you start to think about where you are from a trust perspective. So call to action. Data, always have to start with a bit of research. 68% of adults polled worldwide from a Gallup research perspective believe corruption is widespread amongst businesses in their country. Okay, so if you just thought it was a South African problem, nope. 68% of adults worldwide believe that there's some form of dishonesty in their businesses. 24% of respondents reported seeing or being aware of unethical behavior in their workplace in the past 12 months, and less than half of them chose to report the issue. So when we think about trust, what else is the implication around trust? The trust is the fact that there is some value set here. We probably do need to think a little bit about honesty. We probably want to, I think it's hard, for example, to build trust in organizations that are not honest, or people in organizations that are not displaying the values. And whilst the mafia may suggest that it has trust amongst its members, every now and again you see people break trust and everybody ends up in jail. So it's not that type of trust that we're interested in. So when I looked at the stat, I was just blown away with this idea that, you know, businesses across the world have this problem where people are not doing what they need to do or say they need to do, or, you know, carrying out the values of that business. And that's problematic. And it starts off with how we engage with each other. The key orientation around trust, if we want to build it intentionally, and this is our need, you know, so whatever your requirement is that we need to be very aware of the needs of others. The minute you enter a relationship with only your needs in mind, you're not going to create that safety for the other person. Safety in the sense that you're not there to manipulate them or just to get them to do something for the sake of you. There's some type of mutuality or two-way street, I think, that often comes up. So it's the needs of others. Gallup is a great way of putting this in place. And for trust and for a trust culture to exist, 4 elements are important. One is obviously the trust issue that we are talking about today, and we're only going to focus on number 1. But I thought it'd be interesting for you to go, it's trust plus stability. In other words, people, you know, if you want psychological safety, the organization, even if it's rapidly changing, needs to have some type of stability. Stability could be the way the leader shows up. It could be the values of the organization. It could be the way work is done around there. But you can't change everything all at once. The third one is compassion. You know, COVID has taught us that kindness is something that is so valuable when we reconnect with each other after the COVID change. So compassion, are we really compassionate about with our people, with each other? And it starts really, if you think about kindness, is are you being kind on yourself? Or are you driving yourself into, you know, working harder and harder and harder? And have you perhaps lost perspective of what's happening around you? If you're not self-aware, if you're not kind on yourself, it's very difficult to, I think, have the energy and the capacity and the perspective to be compassionate on others. Now, many leaders will say to me, and team leaders will often go, well, I don't want to be compassionate because it then sends the wrong message that we're not serious about performance. And my answer to that is quite simple. If you're not kind on yourself and others and choose to work smarter, you're not going to perform anyway. And, you know, Margriet and myself do a lot of work in the resilience space, and the lack of compassion is one of the ultimately largest red flags to team burnout. And then the final one, which I think is quite difficult for South Africans, particularly if you are from South Africa at the moment, is that we must always project hope. Now, this is not the naive Walt Disney hope that we all get the end of the movie. We're going to kiss the charming prince, get the pretty girl, and all. No, that's not what I'm suggesting at all. But hope is about the fact that there is a reason why we want to get out of bed tomorrow. Things, if we work together, may get a little bit better. It's not the end of the world, even though it might be trying times, ESCOM putting us into the Middle Ages and so forth. And so this ability to provide hope, I think, is so important. For those with positivity as a strength, it comes easy. This week I had somebody with positivity number 1, and they thought that selling buses across Africa was the easiest thing. Well, they've got something to learn a little bit, but I really so enjoyed the connection around, you know what, there's a go forward energy. You know, it's not a toxic, draining energy, which I think could be so useful. So trust needs stability, compassion, and hope to really function. That's a healthy environment for a trust culture to operate in. So what does it mean if you're trying to sell to clients? Let's use that. If you want to build trust with a client, you have to be stable. In other words, you do what you say, you have a credible stance, you have a good set of products, you have a track record. You have compassion. You understand the needs of your clients first as human beings and then in terms of product. And you can provide hope for them. In other words, when you end up, I know there's some advisors, financial advisors on the call, when you do retire, it's not going to be the end of the world and you're not going to eat dry bread and drink water or have to stay with your kids and all that stuff. There is hope. You can build a better future. Okay, so trust, stability, compassion, and hope. For those that are in organizations, guys, you can use this as a checklist. If you are missing trust, check to see if there's stability, compassion, and hope. So if that's missing, this will be useful, but have a look at those other three components.